Hello, my name is Johnny Perez. I'm the Senior First Things First Manager here at Valley of the Sun United Way, and I will be taking you through the Quality First Scholarships Program training for fiscal year 21. This is our agenda for the training today. Part 1 will cover a general program overview as well as any updates to expect for the new fiscal year that began July 1st, 2020 and will run through June 30th, 2021. In part 2, we'll get into topic sessions, including resource guides. These resource guides are available to you on the Policies and Procedures tab in the Scholarships Reporting portal, and we will review one of them today, but you can also reference them there. Each resource guide will cover topics like annual contracting and participant requirements, family qualification, including acceptable household size documentation, income documentation, and public assistance letters. We'll also review fiscal monitoring as well as monthly payments and reporting. This is our scholarships team at Valley of the Sun United Way. Every year we take a team picture. This year, due to circumstances, we did it over Zoom. You'll probably interact with at least a couple of us throughout the fiscal year. We have a customer service team that is available to answer your questions from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and they also handle our quality assurance process each month on your monthly reports. We also have a fiscal monitoring team that will conduct on-site or remote reviews of your files and child records as they pertain to scholarships. We have our IT support, our legal counsel, and also our FTF scholarships director. Here we have a general overview of your participant requirements for participating in the scholarships program. So at a very high level, these are the things that each site must do to ensure that they receive a payment at the end of the month. The first step is to complete annual contracting. This begins in June of every year. However, sites are onboarded throughout the fiscal year, so they may contract at that time as well. Contracting requires that you complete an online renewal or new participant application via the scholarships reporting portal. In that application, you'll upload any documents required for program participation. And then the only piece of contracting that is actually done outside of that scholarships reporting portal is the participant agreement. That is completed via DocuSign. If you were to become eligible for scholarships, we would send you that contract via DocuSign and you would sign there. Once you've gotten all of your contracting done, the next step is to complete your family qualifications. You as the participant assume responsibility for qualifying your families based on the criteria set forth by Valley of the Sun United Way and First Things First. This includes entering all of your eligible children into the online family qualification tool on the scholarships reporting portal. The final step is to actually complete that monthly report. These are completed on a monthly basis via the scholarships reporting portal. And just keep in mind that anything that you submit to us here is subject to review during fiscal monitoring, including your child files, child attendance, and any family eligibility information. As I mentioned, much of the program is conducted via the online reporting portal. You can access the portal by visiting www.azftfscholarships.org. When you enroll, you are assigned a username and password, and you'll use the portal to, again, complete annual contracting, complete your family qualifications, submit your monthly reports, and should you need them, any adjustments to those monthly reports. We also host your payment information here, as well as your monthly reconciliation reports that basically act as a receipt for your scholarship payments. And then for much of fiscal year 21, we'll also use the reporting portal to conduct fiscal monitoring. We do ask that any documents for program participation be sent to us via the scholarships reporting portal as opposed to being sent via fax or email. The reporting portal is secure and encrypted and is the best way for you to get information to us. Required documents can be uploaded via the Documents, Fiscal Monitoring, Account Settings, or Family Qualification tabs in the reporting portal. Essentially, what you'll do is you'll select your document type from the drop-down list of options. You'll add your file, hit Start Upload, and once that upload reaches 100%, you'll save those changes, and you'll see your documents uploaded onto this Documents tab. If you have any questions when uploading documents, we do have an instruction sheet that is on the Policies and Procedures tab that you are able to reference. Also available to you on the reporting portal is the Family Qualification Inquiry section. Here you can submit any eligibility questions that you may have, and then the pertinent documents as well, so that we're able to review them. What you'll want to do is click on that Family Qualification tab on the far right. Once there, you'll click on that sub-tab that's labeled Inquiries, and you'll see essentially like an email template is going to pop up. You'll type a subject and the body of your message, and again, you can attach any documents that you might want us to review. This is also really nice because it keeps a log of all of your inquiries that you've submitted and also all of the responses that we've given, so you can always reference back to that information. The next tab you'll use in the reporting portal is the Account Settings tab. Each participant is required to assign a minimum of one contact. So that is a name, title, email, and phone number that we're able to reach out to with questions in regards to the scholarships program. However, you can also assign up to 2 more contacts for a manager and an alternate contact. When you're entering this information, just keep in mind that your formatting has to match what's listed here. We do allow phone number extensions up to 5 digits. And then the biggest thing is that we only allow 1 email per email field. In the past, we have had sites list multiple emails under the billing contact email. Now it is limited to 1 email per field, a maximum of 3 per program. That said, if you do have multiple contacts that you want to receive all of our communications, you just have to opt in to the appropriate categories. They're all listed here: program reporting, family qualification, payments and adjustments, and fiscal monitoring. You can all opt into every email. You can opt into some emails, whatever works best for you. But if you want to ensure that you're receiving all of our email communications, just make sure that you're opting into those different categories. The final tab you'll use is the Policies and Procedures tab. Documents required for program participation and any other resources are available here, including this training. Documents include the fiscal year 21 policies and procedures, training resources, attendance resources, the fiscal year 21 payment calendar, and the fiscal year 21 adjustment form. At a child level, some things that you might need to complete your family's applications are the actual fiscal year 21 family application and enrollment packet, the transferable scholarships family notification acknowledgement form, the no income declaration form, and also the family award change notification. So that concludes the general overview section of the presentation. We'll now get into our more specific topic session. Topic 1 is annual contracting. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first step that you will need to complete in order to ensure that you receive a payment at the end of the month. Participant requirements are that you be enrolled and in good standing with Quality First. In order to maintain your scholarships, you do have to maintain enrollment with Quality First as a whole. You also must be in compliance with any and all regulatory agencies. So this will include DES and DHS. Specifically, if you ever come through on the enforcement action list from DHS, we will suspend your payments until a time that you come off of that list. So for that, it's not that we won't ever pay you, it's just that we have to suspend those reimbursements until you are in compliance with them. In terms of contracting, these are the steps that everyone will need to take to successfully contract with VSUW. The first step is to sign your participant agreement. Again, this is done via DocuSign, and this is the only piece of contracting actually done outside of the scholarships reporting portal. We will email you that contract via DocuSign, and you can sign there. If for whatever reason you can't sign via DocuSign, if you require a hard copy of the contract, please just reach out to us via email and we can send that over to you. If you need to make changes to the actual language within the contract, we just ask that you do so via the tracked changes function in Word. That way it's easy for our legal counsel to see and accept those changes. As I mentioned, everything else is done within the scholarships reporting portal. You will be prompted to complete an online application when you log in. On page 1, we ask for your participant information, including your contact information. On page 2, we ask you to upload a certificate of liability insurance. This certificate of liability insurance has to meet all of the requirements as stated within the participant agreement and should be current. It can't be expired. On page 2, we will ask for your W-9 and we'll also ask that you enter your tax ID. And we'll also ask on page 3 for you to make a selection for your payment preferences. You can elect to receive payment via a mailed manual check or an ACH direct deposit. If you are selecting direct deposit, we do also need you to upload a voided check that ties to that bank account. Next, you'll review the fiscal year 21 policies and procedures. These are posted online under the Policies and Procedures tab. And then finally, we do ask that you attend a participant training. It's important that all of these steps be completed because participants will not be eligible for reimbursement until all contracting materials are received by Valley of the Sun United Way. Other participant requirements are that you manage your FTF extranet profile. This is important because the information stored here actually informs a lot of our scholarship information. This will include your ages licensed to serve. So we do use that information from the extranet that is collected from your license that tells us which age groups you are eligible to serve. This becomes important because if you ever have an update, like for example, if you add toddlers to your roster and you don't submit that updated license to coaching, if you try to then report a toddler for scholarships, the system will tell you that you're ineligible. So if ever you have any changes to your child care license, it is important to communicate those to your coach so that they can update your extranet information. The next thing that will impact your scholarships are your program start and end dates. So scholarships are prorated based on the number of months that you are in operation. Typically, a 10-month program would receive more scholarships than a 12-month program to make up for the 2 months out of the year that they are not requesting reimbursement. That said, if ever you needed to extend your allocation, like if you had this misreported and you're truly a 12-month program, but you only listed 10, we wouldn't be able to extend that allocation midway through the year because we've already finalized your budget. So first things first does ask that you update this information as of March prior to the fiscal year. So do make sure that information is up to date because it does impact how they decide to allocate scholarships. The next thing that will impact your scholarships are your annual instructional hours. On the extranet, we ask that you make a selection for either part-time or full-time. Based on this selection, it will determine whether you're allowed to report only part-time scholarships or part-time and full-time scholarships. Finally, the next thing that will impact scholarships that comes from the extranet is your program type. Specifically, if you are a faith-based program, you will be awarded transferable scholarships. So Valley of the Sun United Way can view your extranet information, and we do use your extranet information. However, we don't have the ability to make edits here. It is your responsibility as a participant to make sure that the information recorded in the extranet is accurate and up to date. One of those extranet fields that I mentioned that would impact your scholarships is annual instructional hours. As a scholarships participant, you are required to provide a minimum number of instructional hours annually to participate in the program. For part-time programs, that's 400 hours or more annually. For full-time programs, it's 1,120 hours or more annually. Instructional hours are going to include hours school is open and children are able to attend. It will not include your staff office hours if those are not open to children and families. Each participant must have a calendar specific to their program or preschool that includes all of the following. We'll need to see your daily operational hours. We'll need to see any site closures if you close for things like spring break, fall break, President's Day, Labor Day, anything like that, including any early release days. So if you're leaving early on a Friday for just continual early release, or if you have parent-teacher conferences that week, all of that should be notated. And then finally, it should have a program start and end date, so your first day of school and your last day of school. During fiscal monitoring, if you are selected, we will ask to review this calendar. With annual instructional hours, the biggest thing is that part-time programs may not utilize full-time scholarships, even if those children meet the monthly full-time minimums in some months. So even if in some months they do qualify as full-time, if you as a program are not reaching 1,120 hours or more annually, you cannot report those children as full-time scholarships. All scholarships are allocated as full-time slots. However, one full-time slot may be split into two part-time slots. And again, part-time programs may only utilize those part-time scholarships. So as a part-time program, you're not receiving any fewer scholarships, you just have to split those full-time scholarships that you've been allotted into part-time scholarships. The minimum scheduled time requirements for children on a monthly basis are listed here. For full-time children, they will require 8 scheduled days and 93 scheduled hours. For part-time children, they will require 8 scheduled days and 34 scheduled hours. While scholarships are only awarded as full-time or part-time, children may be eligible to receive special final reimbursements in months where their schedule is reduced due to one or more of the following. So if a child is new to your program and they're not quite hitting that 8-day, 93-hour minimum for full-time because maybe they just started the last week of the month, they could potentially qualify for a quarter-time or three-quarter-time reimbursement due to the fact that their schedule was shortened due to this circumstance of them just starting. Similar to that, the same thing would occur if a child is leaving mid-month and didn't quite hit their minimum scheduled time requirements. Children would also be eligible for special final reimbursements, so quarter time or three-quarter time, if you as the participant have reported at least one closure or holiday day, or if you've reported at least one in-service day. So whenever a child's schedule is affected by something not within their control, they could be eligible for these final reimbursements. The monthly report will automatically calculate the highest final reimbursement possible for each child based on their scholarship award and scheduled time. So there are a lot of factors that play into a child's final payment. However, the report will take care of doing those calculations for you as long as you are assigning your scholarships appropriately and accurately reporting the scheduled time for your children. The system will take care of the rest. So these are the minimum scheduled time requirements for each final reimbursement type. You'll notice that, again, there's only two types of scholarships, part-time or full-time, but that does translate into several different final reimbursements. And these are the minimum scheduled time requirements for those. Keep in mind that quarter time, three-quarter time, and part-time for full-time scholarships are only going to be available again in months when the child's schedule is shortened due to them being newly enrolled, vacated, or your program having a closure holiday or in-service day. Also, something to note with this table is that only children with full-time scholarship awards are eligible to receive a part-time final reimbursement with fewer than 8, but at least 4 scheduled days. Part-time children will always require at least 8 scheduled days to receive that part-time reimbursement. Another factor impacted by your extranet information is whether or not your program has been designated as faith-based. Scholarships awarded to children attending programs with a faith-based component are considered transferable. A transferable Quality First Scholarships Family Notification Acknowledgement Form is required for all children receiving transferable scholarships. These forms are due to Valley of the Sun United Way the same day that the child starts at your program. It should be something that you're having the parents sign when they enroll. These forms can be uploaded via the Documents tab on the reporting portal. You will label them as transferable as you are uploading. It's important that these get turned in because payment will not be issued in fiscal year 21 unless we have a form for each child that you have reported. So as the name suggests, families with transferable scholarships can transfer their scholarship as long as they're meeting the following criteria. So transfers are effective the first of the month, provided that the family has given VSUW at least 7 days notice prior to that transfer. Scholarships do not have to move from one faith-based program to another faith-based program. However, they do have to stay within the same regional partnership council. So you couldn't, for example, have a child transfer from Tucson up to Phoenix. That Tucson child would have to stay in that Pima North region. With transfers, redetermination of eligibility is not required. So if a child chose to transfer, Valley of the Sun United Way would reach out to that site where the child is transferring to and actually send over their eligibility summary from the original site so that the new site is not required to re-qualify them. With transferable scholarships, after 15 days of non-use, that scholarship is going to be awarded back to the program where the scholarship originated. So if you are a faith-based program and you do have these transferable scholarships, and you've maybe had a child that hasn't been in attendance for about 2 weeks, it would be wise to reach out to us at Valley of the Sun United Way to see if they have initiated a transfer. If they have not, after those 15 days, that scholarship is awarded back to you and you could award it to another family at your program. If you have any specific questions on transferable scholarships, please contact Maria Jose Lopez at mlopez@vsuw.org, or if you have any general questions, you can reference the Transferable Scholarships info sheet that is posted to the Policies and Procedures tab. Our next topic is family qualification. Participants are responsible for qualifying families for the scholarships program based on the criteria set forth by Valley of the Sun United Way. And first things first, requirements for all children include the submission of a fiscal year 21 family application. This is available to you on the Policies and Procedures tab in English and in Spanish. It's also available to families at qualityfirstaz.com. When families are completing this application, it's really important to pay attention to page 1. On page 1, the family will list their address, their phone number, and their email. You are required to enter the zip code for the family, their phone number, and their email into the online family qualification tool. So if they don't complete this information, you won't be able to complete their qualification online. So do make sure that they're giving you that information. Next, you'll need to collect a fiscal year 21 enrollment packet. Again, this is available on the Policies and Procedures tab in English and in Spanish. It's a 3-page document. However, we only require that you submit pages 2 and 3, or rather not submit, but keep it on file for the child. Page 2 is the family award notification. It's where we let the family know that they have either a part-time or a full-time scholarship and that VSUW is reimbursing X amount of dollars each month on their behalf. The parent is just signing off there that they understand this. Again, they get a copy and you keep a copy in the child's file. Page 3 is the summary of attendance expectations. It lets the family know what's expected of them attendance-wise and the minimum requirements for a full-time and a part-time scholarship. Again, the family's just signing off that they understand this. You keep a copy in their file and they get a copy for their records. Next, each application requires the proof of lawful presence and age for the applying child. It is for the applying child. There's no requirement that requires parents to be lawfully present in the U.S., but the children are required to be lawfully present in the U.S. Applying children, again, must be lawfully present in the U.S. and be between the ages of 0 to 5, not yet eligible for kindergarten. We consider children kindergarten eligible if they have turned 5 before September 1st, and it is now after September 1st. So if you have 5-year-olds on your program, they may participate in July and August. However, if they're 5 before September, and then September comes, as of September 1st, they would no longer be eligible for the program because we would consider them eligible for kindergarten. However, if you have 4-year-olds that are turning 5 in January, February, March, they can absolutely participate through the end of the school year. When collecting a lawful presence documentation, things that we see sometimes but that are not acceptable are hospital birth certificates. So these are the ones that come from the hospital. They have the doctor's signature and like the little baby feet prints on them. They're very cute, but unfortunately we can't use them to determine lawful presence and age. Also unacceptable when determining lawful presence and age are Social Security cards with vaccination records. I will say the majority of your children will prove lawful presence and age using their state-issued birth certificate. If they don't have that birth certificate, a full list of acceptable documents are listed on page 10 of the family application. Also required for each application is proof of household size. So this will be a tax form 1040 or a public assistance letter. And then we'll also need proof of income for all contributing members. This could be a number of things. The income from the public assistance letter, pay stubs, an employer letter, and we'll get into the specific options as we continue to go through this presentation. It's important that all of these steps be taken because failure to properly qualify families for scholarships will result in funds being rescinded from Valley of the Sun United Way. All applications require the submission of one of the following documents to prove household size. The first option for families is the submission of a public assistance approval or denial letter. These letters are really nice because if they're complete, which would mean the household members listed match the family application, including the applying child, they list a monthly gross income, and they're also dated within the last 12 months, they can be used to verify household size and income. So essentially with this, because the family has already applied for DES and DES has determined a final income monthly number for them, we can just use that DES determined number, multiply it by 12, and use that as the annual income for scholarships. If families are not receiving public assistance, they need to submit their tax form 1040 for 2019 or later. And again, it should match the family application, including all household members and the applying child. With this, it's only going to prove the family's household size. You'll be required to collect other proof of income. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, prior to July 15th, if the family had not yet filed taxes for 2019, we would accept their 2018 tax return due to the IRS tax filing extension. However, after July 15th, it does have to be that 2019 version of the 1040. Household size is going to include anyone listed on these documents. It will also include biological parents living in the same home. You can reference the household size FAQ and examples for more information, and I'll actually pull that up now so you can see what I'm talking about. These resource guides are actually posted to the Policies and Procedures tab in the reporting portal. There are several of them. This one specifically is in regards to determining household. Essentially, it's just going over what I just did, that we use tax forms or a public assistance letter to determine household. This is important because it changes the maximum allowable income for the family as the household gets bigger. It lets you know that your first step you'll want to take is to look at the family members on the family application and see that they match the submitted tax form or public assistance letter. If it matches exactly, you are good to proceed to collecting income documentation. However, it also lets you know what to do if those documents aren't quite matching up. So what to do if the household members listed on the family application do not match the tax return or public assistance letter exactly. And then it also goes through a few scenarios here of other documents that you can collect in addition to those tax forms and public assistance letters that will help us determine a final household size. So it lets you know what to do, for example, if parents have filed their taxes jointly, but now only one parent is trying to apply for the scholarship. It lets you know that in this scenario, we would collect that other parent's income unless that applying parent had a custody or divorce decree that named them the primary custodial parent of the child. It lets you know what to do in the case where a sibling was born after the tax year. So how do you add a child that's not on the 2019 taxes? What to do about extended family members. Sometimes we have applications that list grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, and cousin because they all live together. However, if they're not all on the tax return, they will not count unless they have some sort of guardianship document for that extended family member. And then also what to do, and this happens a lot, if the applying parent hasn't claimed all of their children as dependents. So if they've listed siblings on the application, but those siblings aren't on their tax return, you'll need to ask who claimed those siblings, and if the answer is the other parent, We're going to ask for that other parent's tax return and income, even though they don't all technically live together. So again, it goes through all of those scenarios that do pop up from time to time and lets you know next steps in collecting household size documentation. Also on page 2, it gives you examples of things that we would accept. So this here is an acceptable access letter, and this is how you would read that. This next example is a printout from the DES office of somebody's nutrition assistance benefits. And then finally, this is a tax form 1040. You have your parents filing and all the people that they have listed as dependents. So again, this resource is available to you now on the Policies and Procedures tab. And again, this is the household size specific one, but we did create other resources in regards to reading public assistance letters, determining income, submitting your monthly report, completing adjustments, all sorts of things. Continuing with the presentation, the scholarships program does utilize public assistance letters issued by Arizona's Department of Economic Security to verify household size and income. Letters are required to meet the following criteria. They should be dated within the last 12 months, so that approval or denial date for benefits should be listed within the last year. It should list all household members included on the family application, including that applying child. And then it should also include a monthly gross income and a benefit decision. So this is really important, specifically with access or medical assistance applications. A lot of times they will send an application summary. This is just a summary of the application that the parent has submitted. None of that information has been verified yet, so we can't use that for qualification purposes. The letter does have to say approved, denied, or renewed. Also, what happens with access sometimes is families will receive a renewal approval, but that renewal approval doesn't always include a monthly gross income number. If that's the case, you can use that renewal to verify household size. However, the family would be required to submit other proof of income. Due to COVID-19, DES may have elected to extend benefits beyond the family's scheduled renewal date. So they did send out letters letting families know that they did not have to reapply at this time and their benefits would continue. So we do have an example of that letter. This is what it looks like. It basically says that due to the ongoing COVID emergency, access benefits will continue and that the family is not required to reapply at this time. If this is the case, and it also states that their benefits have been renewed, we will accept this letter, and we can also take their original approval letter, even if it's dated outside of 12 months, and use that income from the original letter. So again, we will accept income from an access letter that is dated outside of 12 months if, in addition to that original approval letter, the family also has this COVID-19 extension from DES. So in order for us to accept that option, they do have to have both letters, but that is the only exception there to the 12-month rule when it comes to accepting public assistance letters. If you have any other questions on public assistance letters, you can always reference the public assistance letters FAQ and examples document that I mentioned a bit earlier. It's posted on the Policies and Procedures tab in the reporting portal. If your families are not receiving public assistance, you will have to collect other proof of income for them. We collect the income of anybody that we consider a contributing member. A contributing member is going to include parents or guardians related to the child via birth, marriage, or adoption. It will also include any heads of household that are claiming the child as a dependent on his or her taxes. So as I mentioned earlier, we typically will not count extended family members like grandparents, aunts, or uncles. However, they will count in the home if they are the head of household filing taxes and they're claiming that applying child as their dependent. In that instance, they would count in the household size and we would also count their income. Also countable are boyfriends or girlfriends living in the same home who share a biological child in common with the applying parent. So typically we would not count a boyfriend or girlfriend. However, If they share a child in common with the applying mom or dad, even if it's not the actual scholarship child, we will count them just because they do have that other shared child in common. Also important is to pay attention to instances of joint custody. So income for both parents or guardians will be counted in cases of shared custody unless one parent has primary custody as reflected in a parenting agreement or custody agreement or as reflected on their tax return or public assistance letter. So that is important to keep in mind. I would say step one when you're accepting applications is to look at page 1 of the family application and compare that to the submitted tax return or public assistance letter. If your names are not matching up exactly, like if you're missing other siblings as dependents, if the applying child is not on the applying parent's tax return, you do need to ask about that other parent. And if they filed jointly, or if they're not legally separated, or if the other parent is just claiming the applying child, you will need to ask for that other parent's taxes or public assistance letter and their proof of income. Acceptable income that we collect would be 1 current consecutive month's worth of pay stubs. So for your families that are employed, this is the most common option. Again, it's 1 current consecutive month's worth of pay stubs. If they are paid weekly, that would be 4 pay stubs. If they are paid biweekly or twice per month, that is 2 pay stubs. And monthly, obviously, is 1 pay stub. If your families are newly employed or they can't locate their pay stubs or they don't quite have a month's worth yet, we can accept a letter from their employer. It does, though, need to be on company letterhead and include either a gross annual income or their hourly rate, average hours worked, and pay frequency. Also acceptable if you have any teachers or other school staff that are on a 10-month contract, we can accept that contract as well. When looking at pay stubs, it's really important that you pay attention to the pay frequency and also the pay description. So for pay frequency, what happens a lot is people confuse biweekly and twice per month pay frequencies. The majority of people are reimbursed on a biweekly pay schedule that is every other week. And when you confuse that with twice per month, what happens is it understates their income. If a family is being reimbursed twice per month, they're usually getting paid on the 15th and the last day of the month. And you'll notice when you look at those pay dates against a calendar that they fall on random days of the week. Some days it's Monday, some days it's Friday or Wednesday, where biweekly is pretty consistently every other Friday, every other Thursday, things of that nature. If you're confused on the pay frequency, I do recommend opting for the biweekly number. It's always better to overstate that income as opposed to understating it and maybe misqualifying somebody who does not actually meet the eligibility criteria. If you do that math and it puts the family over the cutoff and you're still uncertain about those pay frequencies, you can also send us those pay stubs in a family qualification inquiry, and one of our fiscal monitoring team members would be happy to review it for you prior to you actually enrolling that child. As I mentioned, the other thing to pay attention to on pay stubs are those pay descriptions. When determining gross income, we essentially count everything. So all pay descriptions are considered countable. This would include PTO, holiday, vacation, shift differentials, bereavement, anything of that nature. Also tips and commission. The only things that are not considered countable are overtime, bonuses, per diem, and then new this year is hazard pay. We do have a number of families that are receiving hazard pay as a result of the pandemic. Because that income is temporary in nature, it would not be counted towards the family's gross annual income. However, anything outside of these 4 categories should be considered countable. Again, if you have any questions on a specific pay stub, you can always send that to us via a family qualification inquiry on the scholarships reporting portal, and we will get back to you likely within 24 hours. You can also reference the pay stubs FAQ and examples that's posted online for more information on determining income. Other acceptable income, if you have any self-employed families, we will accept their tax form 1040 with applicable forms such as a Schedule C, CEZ, EF, or K1. However, in addition to those tax forms, we also need monthly ledgers verifying gross income, and then receipts for business income and expenses for the 3 most recent months. If your families have not yet filed taxes for their business, they can create a signed profit and loss statement, again, for the last 3 months. However, we do still need those receipts verifying income and expenses. So that's the biggest thing with self-employment is when they're submitting those ledgers or profit and loss statements for the last 3 months, they do have to have receipts that tie to the expenses on those ledgers. If there's no receipt accompanying that expense, we won't be able to count it when we're determining their final income. If they don't have receipts, we will accept bank statements. They can just black out anything that's not a pertinent business expense. But it is important that they have those receipts or bank statements and that they do tie to the expenses listed on the profit and loss statement or the ledger. With self-employment, this becomes a lot of information. It's a large packet of stuff. So if you're having trouble determining a final income for any of your self-employed families, please reach out to us. And again, we're happy to look at any sort of eligibility information prior to you enrolling the child. We'd much rather tell you that the child is ineligible prior to enrolling them as opposed to 6 months later during fiscal monitoring where we're then obligated to rescind those funds. So again, if you have questions, we are available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Continuing with income documentation, if you have any families experiencing homelessness, we will accept a signed statement from their case manager. If you have any unemployed contributing members, we will accept their unemployment insurance statement. We did get some questions around this due to the increase in unemployment benefits due to COVID. That entire benefit amount is countable, so even that higher number. However, I would keep in mind that those benefits are not approved necessarily for an entire 52 weeks of the year. There should state somewhere on that unemployment insurance statement either a maximum benefit number, so the max amount of money they're eligible to receive, or a benefit end date, so the last week that they're able to apply. And again, you would only count that unemployment insurance through either that max benefit amount or that benefit end date. If your families are not receiving unemployment insurance, if they're stay-at-home parents or if they've never worked, you would just have them fill out a no income declaration form. This is available on the Policies and Procedures tab, again in English and in Spanish. Other unearned income that we count is education assistance. So not loans. The logic behind that being is that eventually these families will have to pay those back, but we will count foster care or adoption payments, government or tribal income, including per cap or TANF, Social Security income, including disability or survivor benefits, retirement payments, veteran benefits, and then child support or spousal maintenance. So going back to those scenarios of joint custody, if your applying parent does have a custody agreement that states they are the primary parent, we will not count the other parent in the home and we will not count the other parent's income. However, we will count any child support or spousal maintenance that is being paid by that other parent to the applying parent. So that brings us to fiscal monitoring. All of this family eligibility information is important because VSUW conducts reviews of documents related to program implementation on-site or remotely for a minimum number of sites each fiscal year. During fiscal monitoring, we will review at a program level your program calendar. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we do need to see that program calendar that has your operational daily hours, any closures, and also your school start and end date. We'll also want to look at either your parent handbook or your tuition rate sheet that lets us know what your private pay rate is. So what are your typical rates? And then we'll compare that to what we reimburse and what you've actually reported as your family's out-of-pocket cost. At a child level, each file should have a fiscal year 21 family application, a fiscal year 21 enrollment packet, proof of age and lawful presence, and then your qualification by household size and income. Additionally, when we perform these fiscal monitoring visits, we review 2 months at a time. So when we send our request for a visit or for a review, we'll say that we want to review, for example, October and November. We'll want those sign in and out sheets from October and November. Additionally, we will want the sign in and out sheet for each child for their enrollment month. So kids join the program at different points throughout the fiscal year. So for each child, we would just need that sign in and out sheet from the first month that they actually attended at your program under scholarship, in addition to those 2 months that we've selected for review. Fiscal monitoring follows the timeline stated here. You will receive an initial notification from the fiscal monitoring coordinator via email. We typically give about a week's notice. However, do keep in mind that fiscal monitoring coordinators can give as little as 48 hours notice prior to the scheduled visit. Once they've sent you that initial visit notification, it'll let you know the time that they've set aside for review. So during that review period, the coordinator will conduct their initial review of your program files, again, either on site or remotely. Once they've done that initial review, you can expect a report sent by the coordinator within 1 week of that review. That report is going to detail any errors that they might have found. If you receive a report that says you have verbal warnings only, your program is considered 100% compliant and we do not require a response. Examples of verbal warnings include like maybe you misspelled a child's name, or maybe you misentered their birth date by a day, but it's still the same month and year and it's still the same reimbursement. Things like that, we will point out to you and we will correct them on future reports. However, it doesn't impact your payment. All of your files are still complete, so we consider you 100% compliant and no response is required. If you receive a report that has verbal warnings and findings only, your program is not considered compliant and payment adjustments will be made for those findings. However, again, we don't need a response. So you would have those verbal warnings that I mentioned earlier, but you'd also have a finding where maybe a family is over the maximum income cutoff for their household size. If that's the case, the child's ineligible, so we're going to remove them from your reports and rescind those funds that were paid, but we don't require a response from you. All of your other files are complete, so we'll give you a final compliance percentage and rescind those funds, but we don't need a further response. The only time we will need a response is if your program has observations. In the case of observations, your program is not considered compliant and payment adjustments will be made if corrective action is not taken to address these errors that we've pointed out to you. So that takes us to step 4, and that is the window for your participant response to our initial report. Programs with observations included on that initial report will be given 10 business days to respond. An observation would be something like maybe you collected a hospital birth certificate for a child and mom and dad swore they were going to get you the state-issued copy. They just had to order it and they never brought it in. If that's the case, we would give you 10 business days to get with that family to get that correct document and submit it to us so that we can confirm that the child actually is eligible. If you have observations only, your next payment will be held if we don't receive a response to all observations within 10 business days. If you have observations and findings, so if you have a child that we know is ineligible right away, and then we also have children that have pending files, we will hold your next reimbursement regardless of where it falls in relation to your 10 business day deadline. With situations like this, if we know we're already going to have to rescind funds, it is easier for us from an accounting perspective to hold all reimbursement until we get a final deduction number, until we're able to see if those observations can be resolved or if we're going to have to take back more funds. Observations not resolved within 30 business days will automatically become findings. So if you're not able to complete a child's file within 30 business days, we will rescind the funds paid for that child and they will be removed from your future scholarships reports. Once you have resolved all pending observations or that 30 business day window has lapsed, you will receive a final report from your coordinator that details all verbal warnings or findings and a final compliance percentage. Do keep in mind that any participants with findings will automatically be selected for fiscal monitoring for the subsequent program year. Due to COVID-19, on-site fiscal monitoring visits will be limited for at least a portion of fiscal year 21. Again, we typically visit you in person. You sit us in your office or at one of those little kiddie tables and we flip through your scholarships book. However, just due to the ongoing pandemic, fiscal monitoring will be conducted virtually for at least a portion of fiscal year 21. Your coordinator will set up a Zoom meeting with you, much like this training, to review the process beforehand, and they'll send you their request for child files. They'll actually upload that to the fiscal monitoring tab in the reporting portal. It will have their request for the specific child names as well as their attendance records. We'll also upload your initial report there and a final report should you have observations that were resolved. You as the participant are responsible for uploading your child files to this tab and then also uploading any response to observations should you have any. We do ask that when you are uploading your child files that you upload them as one file per child, that you keep their file together and that you label it by the child's name. Best practice would be to upload it in order of the fiscal monitoring checklist. This will be sent to you when you're selected for fiscal monitoring, but it's also available to you now on the Policies and Procedures tab, and it goes in order of the way our coordinators review files. So what would be easiest for them is if you order your upload by family application, enrollment packet, legal residency document, household document, income document, and attendance. If you upload your child files in that order and label them by each child's name, it will make it so much easier for our coordinators to sort through all of that paperwork. The quicker they're able to do that, the easier it is for them to get you a report. We know fiscal monitoring isn't everybody's favorite piece of the program, so the easier you make it for us, the quicker we can get you a response and hopefully relieve any stress that you might have as it relates to this process. Our next topic is monthly reporting. Prior to reporting, all children must be qualified via the online family qualification tool on the scholarships reporting portal. When you log in, you'll click on the family qualification tab on the far right, and the tool will determine eligibility based on information entered from each family's application. If you have children continuing on the program between fiscal years, they will all be listed in blue near the bottom of the page. If that child, again, is continuing for this new fiscal year, what you'll want to do is click this stacked paper icon under Actions. What that will do is give you a prompt asking if you'd like to duplicate that child's record. You'll select yes, and a new record for the new fiscal year will appear for that child in pink at the top of the page. This is important because what that does is it maintains the child's first name, last name, date of birth, first date attended, and all of that information that you've already entered. And then at that point, you'll just have to update the family size and income information for the new fiscal year. If children are new to the program, you'll hit the new child button. You'll add in all of their information, including their name and date of birth, and you will save them as of the month that you would like them to begin on the program. Once you have all of your children qualified via the family qualification tool, you are ready to submit your reports. Any eligible children from the tool will automatically pull forward to your monthly report for that month. The reporting window is open from 12 a.m. on the first calendar day of the month through 11:59 p.m. on the 7th calendar day of the month for the month prior. So for example, you would submit for October between November 1st and November 7th. It will always be 7 calendar days, and the reporting window is inclusive of weekends and holidays. Any reports submitted after the 7th are considered late, so whether it comes in at 12:01 on the 8th or a whole month later, if it's after the 7th, it is considered late. Reports may not be submitted more than 1 month late, and no late reporting is allowed for June, just due to that being the final month of our fiscal year. So do always pay attention to those dates. All reports for the end of the fiscal year are due by July 7th at 11:59 p.m. For the purposes of Quality First scholarships, time for virtual or remote instruction is not considered eligible for reimbursement. Instruction must be conducted on-site and in person to be considered countable. Due to the ongoing pandemic, we do have a number of programs that are only operating remotely or may be completely closed. If that's the case for your program, you can document any efforts that you've made to provide remote instruction in the notes section of your monthly report. However, when you're actually filling out instructional time for your site and scheduled time for your children, you will be required to report zeros there. The following activities are not going to count as instructional time or scheduled time for scholarships. So any self or parent guided worksheets or take-home activities, online learning platforms, staff or office hours not utilized by children, remote instruction conducted via video chat, or conference calls with children and parents. So again, in order for time to be considered countable as scheduled time for scholarships, the children do need to be scheduled to attend in person. That said, we are still asking that participants complete reports for fiscal year 21. Participants that have qualified children for fiscal year 21 are still required to submit reports on a monthly basis. If you are closed or only operating remotely, it's honestly going to be one of the easiest reports that you complete, because as you're filling out your information, you're pretty much going to list zeros everywhere. Instructional days will be 0. Closure holiday days will be the number of days school would have been open if not for the pandemic. And then scheduled days, attended days, and scheduled hours will all be 0 for your children. Again, any sort of virtual learning is not considered scheduled time, but you can record those efforts in the notes section of your report. Reported data for scholarships is going to be compared to temporary closures data provided by the QF coaching side of the program on a monthly basis. So please be certain to update your QF coach as your program does begin to reopen. So as you are reopening, do make sure that you're notifying your coach so that they can in turn notify us. So that way when we see your reports, it makes sense to us that you're reporting scheduled time, that you're not still listed as closed. So moving on to our next topic, it's payment. I think maybe the last few slides might have made some of you nervous in regards to how you can expect to receive payment if we're telling you to report zeros everywhere. You can expect a payment. In an effort to stabilize funding during COVID-19 for at least a portion of fiscal year 21, payments will be issued on the following criteria. So if you are a site that participated in February 2020 and you did not have any gaps in enrollment and you received a February 2020 reimbursement, what we will do is compare your reported total for the current month's report based on like your actual scholarship usage to that February 2020 payment that you received. And we will actually issue your payment on the higher of those two amounts. So if you are somebody that is closed or has significantly reduced enrollment since February, we will pay back to that February amount as long as your allocation between February and this current month has not gone down, has not been reduced. If you are a site that did not participate in February 2020, so you're new or you didn't have a February 2020 report to pay off of, or if your fiscal year 21 allocation is less than February's allocation, we will be comparing your reported total for the current month against a baseline usage calculation using a formula that was drafted by First Things First. And again, payment will be issued on the higher of those two amounts. So if you are a new program that does not have a February reimbursement, or if you're someone who has lost scholarship slots between February and now, we will be calculating a payment for you using the average slot usage and average payment across all participants in February, and basically creating a February baseline number for you, since we don't have that February actual to compare to. And again, your report total for the current month will be compared to that calculated number, and payment is going to be issued on the higher of those two amounts. So if you are somebody that is only operating remotely or has significantly reduced enrollment and is worried about how you're going to subsidize your program with these scholarship funds, this is the method that we are implementing temporarily to help you do that. If at any point throughout the fiscal year we change our payment method, you will be notified in writing via email. So what that means with that payment structure is that all eligible programs will receive a payment on a monthly basis, regardless of whether or not you submit a report on time. So we are still abiding by that reporting window of reporting within the first 7 calendar days of the month. And if you submit late, that report is considered late. However, this is how we'll be processing those late reports moving forward. So if you don't submit by the 7th, your report total will be considered 0. Obviously, when we run that 0 comparison back to either February or that baseline usage calculation, those numbers are going to be higher, so we'll default to issuing your payment again based on either February or that baseline usage calculation. We will still perform quality assurance on that report, and we'll still review it for a final payment total. In the event the total for that late report is more than the amount that we have already reimbursed using February or the formula, we will pay up to that difference in the following month. So for example, your late September report is $7,000 and we reimbursed you at February because you didn't report on time, and that was only $5,000. In that next month, when we're processing October's payment, we will reimburse you that $2,000 difference between the late September report and the February amount that we have already paid. If there's no difference, so if your late report is less than February or the formula calculation anyway, you cannot expect to receive any further reimbursement for that month. Participants can reference the fiscal year 21 payment calendar posted online for reimbursement dates. Reconciliation reports, so basically a summary of your payment, are posted to the Adjustments and Recon Reports tab in the reporting portal the same day that payments are issued each month. So if you reference that calendar, we pay on the Friday of the 3rd full week of the month. Sometimes that is truly the 3rd week, sometimes it's actually the 4th week. Again, you can reference that calendar for the specific date in each month. On that same day, you'll want to check the Adjustments and Recon Reports tab for your reconciliation report. The amount listed there as the final payment should match either the manual check that you've received or your bank deposit. If you notice a discrepancy in your report, you can submit adjustments to us up until the 7th of that next month. So for example, again, in September, if you're reporting for September, you'll receive that payment about the 3rd or 4th week of October. If when you receive that deposit for September and October, you notice a mistake that maybe you forgot to add a child, you forgot to remove a child, you needed to update an award type, or you misreported scheduled days or hours, you have up until November 7th to submit an adjustment for that September report. If you don't do it by that date, you would forfeit your ability to make that adjustment. Similar to late reports, payment for adjustments are only going to be processed up to the difference between what we've already paid and the requested adjustment amount. So if you request an adjustment and it doesn't actually modify your payment at all, we'll still make the changes to the reported data, but you may not expect any further reimbursement. Again, the adjustment due date is 11:59 p.m. on the 7th of that next month. The only time we will make an exception to that due date is if it is related to fiscal monitoring, or if it's a date of birth correction. For date of birth corrections, we do want that to reconcile across the whole fiscal year. So as long as you submit that child's lawful presence document that has their birth date along with your adjustment, we will complete those as far back as we need to go to correct those payments. So that concludes our presentation today. This slide here just has the contact information for our team. Again, we are available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you can reach us via phone or email. And also the web address for the reporting portal is here as well. Should you have any questions throughout your participation in the program, please feel free to reach out to us via phone or email. If we don't answer that day, we will definitely respond within 24 hours. Thank you for watching and for your participation today, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.